Yo, 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 what is going on, sports fans? This is Matt Kowalis from Sports Memo and Wager Talk, back with my good friend and partner, Eric Pauly, with the Bettor's Almanac podcast. We are now at episode 14 of the podcast and week 18 of the NFL season, last week of the regular season. It's crazy how fast the NFL season goes, I swear to God. But, we're looking to close this out strong. Got some top bets, as always, the dog of the day, some player props, best bets. Eric, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing well, Matt. Doing really well. Very happy to see all the positive news surrounding Damar Hamlin this morning. We're recording Friday morning.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's been a scary week, but every single day getting incrementally better with more and more good news. Seems like we're getting the best of the news now and just hoping to hear more and more. But it was a good week 17. Like, again, another profitable week for me. Nothing too crazy, just a 3-2 week. I actually went a little, not square, but a little I guess you could say square, because obviously parlays are not the best things to do. There are some situations where parlay is a good bet, not. But last week I was just like, yo, the Browns are beating the Commanders. There's no doubt in my mind that was my biggest lock on the board. And then I thought that the Seahawks beating the Jets was the second biggest lock on the board. So I said, screw it, plus 110 each, parlayed them both. And obviously it was a nice hit there. But overall, not like a crazy week to write home about, but, in the positive for the, I think, 9th straight week, I'm not going to complain. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, no, 100%. I went 4-4 last week. I was kind of heavy on that Bengals-Bills game. Like we talked about, I really liked that game. And, just crazy circumstances. I think the NFL did the right thing in canceling that game. And, after everything went down in my head and even in all the group texts that I'm in with my buddies, I was like, yeah, there's no chance that they play this game. Like, this game has to get originally rescheduled, but then you're like, how the hell can they fit this in? They can't. There's just too much going on. So, a lot is changing there. But, moving on to week 18, there are some key games this week, some games that have playoff implications. The Detroit Lions, definitely one of them, going against the Green Bay Packers. I personally think that might be the game of the week. So very excited for that. And before we get into that, this week on the Bettor's Almanac podcast, we're going to be giving away a $200 free bet. Okay, to get that $200 free bet, you need to place a same game parlay on PointsBet Sportsbook of a live bet of $15 or more, or place a same game parlay for any game of $15 or more on PointsBet as well. Then you screenshot that same game parlay, post it over at the Bettor's Almanac Twitter, and you are entered. Easy as that, because right now with PointsBet Sportsbook, it is time to get your swagger back. New customers can sign up using the code Almanac to get 5 second chance bets of up to $500. That's 5 straight days of second chances where PointsBet will match your losing wager in free bets. So use promo code Almanac and enjoy more live betting markets than ever before. PointsBet, your move. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-270-7117. And let's get right into it. We got the dog of the day coming up. A little bit different with week 18. There are some teams who are just doing the tank. They're kind of packing it in. And then there's some teams who have playoff implications. And me personally, those are the games that I target, the games that have playoff implications, games that have two teams that have something to play for. What about you, Eric? Do you change anything this time?
Dude, you're 100% right. There is a better, unless you have some intel about a motivational factor from two teams that are out of the playoffs that are playing, the games that you should definitely be targeting are the games where one team is out and one team is in or needs to win to get in. Those are the games you should be targeting, because what often happens is the general public knows that that's the case. They're betting the hell out of the team that they think is supposed to win because they need to win. And all that does is drive up the price and overvalue the team that needs to win for amazing betting opportunities on the team that just wants to play spoiler.
Yep, 100%. Every single year we see it too. You back that team that you're like, oh, this team has so much to play for. Oh, they're hot. They're gonna, they gotta keep this run going in the playoffs, whatever it may be. And then there's that team that everyone's sleeping on who comes in and plays spoiler. Because in the NFL, teams have to enjoy playing spoiler. And in week 18, a lot of times it's a divisional matchup on top of that. So it's a rivalry game. So obviously a team in your division is going to want to knock you out of the playoffs. They probably like nothing more. So those are the situations that we look for here. And yeah, for me this week, this is a team that technically doesn't have anything to play for in the Cleveland Browns at plus 120 against the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it is what we just spoke on. It's a divisional matchup. It's a rivalry game, and kind of what we spoke on last week with Deshaun Watson and this Browns team. Even though they're technically eliminated from the playoffs, I think this team still wants to play good. I think this team still wants to generate some chemistry, see Deshaun Watson continue to make progress with receivers like Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones, like we talked about last week. I think they want to get that run game going a little more against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, once again, what team wants to beat the Steelers more than the Cleveland Browns? Well, maybe the Baltimore Ravens or something like that. But, this is a division where all of these teams are very close. They play very similar style football. This is a Cleveland Browns team on top of that who hasn't given up more than 17 points in 3 straight weeks. So they're playing very good football. And when you can keep games close like that, you have a chance to win outright in the end or cover the +3, +2.5 spread, whatever the Cleveland Browns may be. And with the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've won back-to-back weeks on game-winning drives, back-to-back weeks of 3-point victories on top of that. So for me, it's like you can't sit there and think that you're going to every single week going to go down and make that game-winning drive. At some point, it just doesn't happen in the NFL. At some point, you make a mistake. At some point, you take that bad sack, that strip sack, that bad interception, tip ball, whatever it may be. And I think it could be this week against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are solid on the road as well with a 4-3 against the spread record, while the Steelers are 3-1 against the spread at home. But again, even though it's 2.5 points, 3.5, I think that's too many. And I think Cleveland Browns are the dog of the day for me personally and can definitely go into Pittsburgh and win this game outright.
Yeah, so we came in without even talking about any of this, but on the exact same page. I have 2 plays locked in, and unfortunately those numbers aren't still available, but I have the Cleveland Browns +3 for my clients at Sports Memo, and I have the Los Angeles Rams +7 for my clients at Sports Memo because of the same exact thought process you're kind of bringing out. So I've come across a couple of like crazy stats on week 18, week 17, when it used to be like the final 2 weeks of the season. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, the Cleveland Browns over the last 30 years, 3 decades, 30 years have never had a better record than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's just something to look back 30 years for the 30th straight season, the Cleveland Browns have not had a better record than the Pittsburgh Steelers. So obviously there's that one motivation factor. Number 2, one of my colleagues from another website, TA, he has a huge database and he went and did some digging. And in situations where there's a team that has to win to make the playoffs versus a team that is already out of the playoffs, which both these Rams and Pittsburgh games fit because if Seattle wins, they'll be in. If Pittsburgh wins, they'll have a chance to win. The teams that need to win the game are 57 and 95 against the spread, which is a 37% against the spread margin. That goes back to what I was saying, and the reasoning that is that way is because the general public is going to say, hey, Seattle needs to win this football game. Let's keep betting Seattle. That number is going to tick up a little bit because everybody's going to be on that side. When in reality, all you're doing is creating value on the underdog because you're just bringing that spread up higher. Like I make the Rams-Seahawks game 5.5 points. It was sitting 7 earlier this week. I obviously took that 7 because it seemed egregious. And what do I know? Now it ticked down to 6, 5.5 at some shops also. So just a little insight there. Yeah. There are situations where it is overvalued, and the Browns and the Rams both fit that criteria. The other game that fits that criteria is Jets-Dolphins. However, given now that we have Joe Flacco going, the line has moved. All right, it started Miami -2, went to the Jets -1.5, and we thought Mike White was playing, even though I still don't get it. Mike White, that guy sucks. Then it flipped back to Miami -2 when White was still questionable. Now he's out. It's Flacco Thompson. It's Miami -3. That's overvalued, right? I think that's overvalued. So Miami actually, the Jets do now kind of fit this. They fit the criteria in the first place, but I'm interested in them. I'm not saying it's a complete 3-0 sweep, but these teams are all going to win outright. I do like the Rams and the Browns, but we're talking points. I'm definitely taking those teams' points. And the reason why I like the Rams outright in this situation too is just because Sean McVay is not going to put his foot off the gas. He's going to try to be his divisional rival. both the Browns and the Rams do not have first-round draft picks, so there's no organizational tanking. There's no, the GM calling the head coach and saying, hey, take out these guys. We need to lose this game to get a better pick. There's none of that happening. The Browns want to see what Deshaun Watson can do with this offense, and this is just another debut, another audition, another, confidence booster. On the Rams side, Baker Mayfield's playing for a contract, and Sean McVay's playing against a division rival who he hates losing to. No one's not playing hard, so I think both of these two teams are in contention to pull up the win, and I took them both to cover the spread. So obviously a lot more games on the board this week, and there's some others that I lean towards and like, but those are by far my two biggest value plays of this week so far. How do you think about the Rams, Matt?
Yeah, I'm down with the Rams as well. It's kind of the same scenario where it's one of those situations with the Seattle Seahawks where you already know the public is going to be heavy on the Seahawks. They think the Seahawks are going to, beat the Rams, who've been fairly easy this year. Definitely not anything close to what they were last year. And but again, it's those situations where one team has all the pressure. One team like the Rams is just coming in, they're free flowing, and they're like, hey, let's go out there, let's try and win this game, let's just play some football, have fun. And when you go out and you play free like that and you're playing spoiler, sometimes you play that much better than your opponent. You know what I mean? And we do know this Rams team has some stars that they can play around. Baker Mayfield has been playing some good football over there. He's been making some pretty good throws. And I think it's very capable for this Rams team to go out and potentially win this outright. And I'm even more confident in the +6 or +6.5. I really like that play as well. That's not an official play for me just yet. The Cleveland Browns definitely are. So, but the Rams are definitely one that I'm looking to add at some point potentially, but I did miss that good number of the +7 that you got. So that's something that I'm kind of waiting on, I guess.
Yeah, no, it was nice play. I was thinking about it because it was sitting 6.5. So I looked at the alt lines and saw I was seeing +7s -125, -130, but BetMGM was hanging at +7 -120. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
on that.
Real quick, before we get into, I just had a question for you. Before we get into the top bet, with the Denver Broncos and the LA Chargers, that game is in Denver, but that spread opened up, around 3.5 for Denver. I got Denver at +3.5. Now it's at -2.5. Do you know why that line swayed so much?
Yeah. So from what my understanding of this game is, so the Chargers are still competing for solely just positioning. They're in the playoffs, locked in and loaded into that postseason spot. So
yeah,
we're going to pull off the standings. So it's all going to be coming based on motivation because this game is played at 4:25 while the Bengals Ravens is at 1:00. So basically, depending on who wins. So if the Bengals just win the game and the Ravens lose that game, then the Chargers are not going to play anybody because they're guaranteed to have the 5 seed. However, if Baltimore beats Cincinnati, then the Ravens will have a leapfrog the Chargers for the 5 seed. And if they really want to go up that seed, they'll need to beat the Broncos. So something that we'll talk about in a little bit on another game also, but a situation where you have to do a lot of waiting and seeing this week, right? It's nowhere near as simple as any other week in the NFL. You have your news, you know who's playing, you take the bet based on your numbers, your metrics, how you make the game. This is a situation where there's waiting to see. So the reason why that line went from LA -3 to 3.5 all the way to Denver -3 is because of this uncertainty about whether or not the Chargers are going to play their starters.
Okay.
And we won't know until probably like 3/4 of the way through the Ravens-Bengals game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Because when I looked at that, I grabbed that line, I believe, on Monday or Tuesday, and I saw the 3.5. And originally, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, the Chargers already have their playoff seeding kind of confirmed. And yes, they can move up or down. But even if you're already confirmed and locked and loaded in the playoffs, you're not going to want to go out and play all your starters like that. They just got healthy with Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, everyone there. And earlier this season, they beat the Broncos by 3 in their house. So, when I saw that 3.5, I was like, yeah, this Broncos team plays some pretty shitty football sometimes. But in Denver, I'll back them with the 3.5 there. So definitely got some good, really good.
Great bet there. You made a great bet there.
Yeah. So I got a little lucky there too. I wasn't expecting a 5-point swing, you know what I mean? But regardless, I really liked Denver in that spot and honestly thought they were going to be my dog of the day before the line swayed over. But too late now.
Yeah, and you can play Denver a couple different ways. Like it depends on how you kind of think the Ravens-Bengals game's going, but a safe way to do it now, considering the news that's come out, the Bengals are now 10-point favorites. They were 7-point favorites less than 24, literally 12 hours ago, they were 7-point favorites. And you could do a parlay of the Bengals money line with the Broncos money line, because if the Bengals win, then the Broncos are gonna become -7.
That's a really good point.
So
Yeah.
there's some value there. And conversely, if you think the Ravens are going to win, you can go like the more aggressive route of taking a money line parlay of the Ravens money line and then the Chargers money line, because they're correlated in that sense where, depending on what happens in that Ravens-Bengals game, is going to directly impact the motivation and whoever actually plays football in the Chargers-Broncos game. So that's what I'm saying. Week 18, man, like this shit's it's a crapshoot. Like the best way to get value in week 18 is to just be paying attention, right? Like obviously life happens, you rely on guys like us and some of our colleagues to get us the information, because this is what we do, and we'll do our best to get you. But even then in this situation, we could say X, Y, and Z, and next thing you know, an hour from now, the Charge could be like, screw it, we don't even care if we're the 5 seed. We'll take the 6 seed. Everybody's resting, and just like that, any bet you have is kind of toast. So definitely a let to wait and see approach. But let's hop into some teaser options quick before we get into your best bet of the day. Again, I'm on the Rams +7, Browns +3, but so Browns +8.5 in any teaser that you could find, I absolutely love. The Buffalo Bills, again, shout out to them. Not to be insensitive, and if this comes off as insensitive, I'm sorry, but this whole incident could literally be the spark that they need to go on a run. And I think that while there's potentially there's a chance that they don't play well because they haven't really practiced, their heads have been elsewhere, obviously understood. There's also a chance that they come out steamrolling because they're just like so happy about this amazing news that he's going to be okay. And like they have this revival. This whole team has been together. It could be like a bonding event. So the way Buffalo matched up with New England is just immensely great regardless. So I do love Buffalo at the -1 in a teaser. Jets +8.5, I like as well now, because like we mentioned, now because of this news, I feel like the Dolphins are now overvalued because Skylar Thompson should not be laying 3 points with anybody. And obviously Joe Flacco, he's like, if Mike White's here and Zach Wilson's here, like Mike White has to be like Joe Flacco has to be closer to Mike White than Zach Wilson, right? It's not even like on the same level. So I don't see that huge swing. So I like the Jets in the teaser. And then Vikings Bears, I mean, it's Nathan Peterman. Going against the Vikings. Minnesota's still going to play hard, at least for the first half of this football game. So I kind of like the Vikings in the teaser as well. Matt, what else are you looking at here? And also, again, I just tried to stay away from any games where there's going to be huge news or anything like that, right? Like I could have put in the Cowboys or whatever, or the Giants or something like that. But like those games, you don't know how they're going to play out. Like even the Jaguars-Titans, I could tease the Jaguars down to a PK. But I kind of like the Titans plus the point. I'm not like opposed to betting the Titans. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm the same way. It's like I don't exactly think the Titans are going to win the game, but again, like it's one of those situations where 6.5 points. The Titans have been playing terrible football. They still got Derrick Henry. Mike Vrabel's a really good coach. This Jacksonville Jaguars team's very young. They could sneak up on them for sure. But yeah, when I look at the teaser options, my favorite two are definitely the Browns and the Bills for sure. I really like those two. I think combining those look like a really good pick. One that I personally like this week too, and it's going to be in my best bet, is the Detroit Lions. I really like the Detroit Lions. If you were to do a 6-point teaser, getting them at 10.5 on the road against Green Bay, to me that sounds pretty good. I think that's something that the Lions would definitely cover. And again, to your point with the New York Jets, like I like that as well. I think with the Seattle Seahawks, their defense has been questionable. They haven't been scoring like before. We know how the Jets defense definitely plays football on top of that. So I definitely think that, although I do like Seattle in that game, I think that's definitely a game that's going to stay within 8 points or something along those lines,
100%. So let's get into your best bet. You're going with the Lions plus the 4.5. This is interesting, right? So you mentioned teasing them up, and this is just like I guess a devil's advocate point before you get into it, because I understand why you like it for the X's and O's standpoint. But if the Seahawks win, the Lions will not be participating in the postseason, right? This game, I'm asking because I'm just making sure I'm correct. If the Seahawks win, this game is meaningless, or what is the situation for this game?
Yes, essentially for the Lions, it's meaningless.
Then the Packers could still somehow leapfrog the Seahawks.
Yes.
Based on a different tiebreaker. Okay. Regardless, though.
We're rooting for the Rams, yes.
Yeah, the point that I'm getting at here, though, is if Seattle wins the football game, right, and the Lions are toasted, since the Lions played 8:25, they'll know for 100% certainty their fate prior to the start of this game. So just like the Jets, the Seahawks, and the Steelers, the line can be crazily overvalued to the point where not like 4.5 isn't overvalued, but if they lose, next thing you could see the Packers laying 6.5, 7. But the Lions, they prepared all day for their starters. I don't think Dan Campbell's the kind of guy to just be like, hey, guys, like I know we're going to play for the playoffs, but never mind. We'll just let Aaron Rodgers win. They're going to still play their best football. You could probably get like a 7.
You're right.
Without anything. So I'm just curious from the X's and O's why you're liking the Lions, but just another tidbit of advice there is this might not be a run to the counter bet because you could literally get a better number, which isn't the case an hour before the game starts.
No, that's a really, really good point. I think you're dead on with that as well, because if it's again, you're getting plus 4.5 right now because of the situation at hand. And that's also why I'm targeting this football game, because of the situation at hand. We potentially have 2 teams that will be facing off for a playoff bid. And, if that goes out the window, I do think it deflates your tires a little bit. But also to your point, we know who Dan Campbell is as a head coach. Like he is going, even if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to be disappointed. No doubt everyone would be. But Dan Campbell's going to go in. He's going to fire this team up. He's going to try and get their asses going because that's who he is. And that's what he's made the makeup of the Detroit Lions. That, that's their personality. Regardless of the situation, they're going to go out. They're going to play hard football. They're going to play good football. And, they're going to play tough. And I think that's why they beat the Green Bay Packers in the first matchup in Detroit. And now I also think that's why I'm confident backing a team like the Lions going into Green Bay and potentially covering this plus 4.5 spread. But literally what you just said, I haven't put this ticket in just yet. I'm 100% going to wait now because that just makes way too much sense. Because again, if that does occur, I would imagine this line moves. I don't know if it would get to, you think it get to 7? I was thinking 6.5.
Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like it could touch, like that's the thing with the markets too. Like it could touch 7 for literally a minute and a half, and you could get the 7, you can get the 6.5. But like, yes, I do think that it's going to go up. It's not going to go down, right? And even there's no way it goes down. It's going to stay the same if anything. So worst case, you're getting the 4.5 again. You know what I mean?
For sure. And, one big reason in why I like the Detroit Lions here is, for one, this is a team that's been solid on the road, 4-3 against the spread, and the Packers are 3-1 at home against the spread. So, not a ton of differentiation there. But my biggest thing is, this Green Bay Packers defensive line or this Green Bay Packers defense is actually 26th throughout the NFL in terms of rushing yards given up per game. And we all know the Detroit Lions have one of the best offensive front fours in all of football. Jamal Williams is a tough runner of the football. He used to play for the Green Bay Packers. So, he's going to want to come out and put on a show. And then DeAndre Swift been somewhat coming along on top of that, rushing the football, receiving out of the backfield, things like that. And I think those two could actually give this Green Bay Packers defense a shit ton of trouble in this matchup. Again, this Green Bay Packers defense has been giving up a ton of yards on the ground, 26th overall throughout the NFL in rushing yards given up per game. And we've talked about this many times. When you can open up the play action attack for a quarterback, give him some easy throws early on to get him going like Jared Goff, I think that helps a lot. And when you got weapons like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams is starting to come along, DJ Chark is back. This is a team that has all of their weapons. And honestly, I think this is a team that is better than the Green Bay Packers. I think, the Packers are also coming along offensively with their receiving core with Christian Watson, Lazard, Dobbs, all those guys. But guys like James Houston are making names in Detroit, as a rookie. You got guys like Aiden Hutchinson who's been getting some pressure on the quarterback. So I'm actually confident enough to back this Detroit Lions. And a lot of my confidence actually goes into this defense and the ability for them to potentially put some pressure on Aaron Rodgers, stuff like that, for the Lions on offense, to control the clock, to control the ground game as well. So for me, I'm backing this Detroit Lions team with the plus 4.5, and I'm backing Dan Campbell. But I think you made an amazing point in regards to how the spread could move, and I think that's something that everyone needs to write down because I'm going to wait on that as well.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I got that from a colleague again too that told me that, and I was like, wow, that makes a ton of sense. And these are things now that, like, however old you are, like, you got this for the remainder of like your life in football. Like, you now know, for starters, that teams that need to win versus like if you ever were curious about that, now you know that teams that need to win versus teams that are out are 37% against the spread. Like again, maybe if it comes to a money line teaser or something like that, like you could think about that. But if you're betting the spread and you're laying 7, if you see this opening spread on a Monday of week 18 of a 7 in that situation, like take the 2 plus the 7 and you'll probably see that line come down. So these are things again that Matt and I are trying to do is not only give you the information for this week, but things in the future, because will there be a situation where the NFL puts a game on a 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock where the other game that matters is 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock? 100%. You know what I mean? So
that makes a ton of sense. It's a great point.
Things to consider. My best bets on the show, we literally already went into. I am obviously looking to have more than just 2 plays on my card. I'm also going to be looking more in the teaser market and the prop market. There are some things to consider also, like, for example, incentives on contracts. Like, I didn't know. I botched last week, right? I was staring at Mike Evans' receiving yard number at like 54.5 or some bullshit. He got for obviously 200 plus. And I knew that he needed like 80 to hit the 1,000 for the 1,000-yard season for the 9th straight. And I backed out of that bet because we had this week also. So I thought like, all right, whatever. So like he probably isn't fully motivated to do it because of this week. And Carolina was down their top 2 corners last week, so I should have bet that. Obviously, we saw what happened. But another thing to keep in mind is if you're able to find those details on who needs to hit what incentive, whether it be catches, yards, sacks, rushing yards, receiving yards, passing yards, any of those things, those are situations where you can make money. All these players, they know who needs what and who to hit. They also not even just for contract incentives, for team, like most rushing yards in the season for like Justin Fields sitting out. It's a quarterback, so that makes sense. But like, for example, Deron Payne on the Commanders, like he needs 1 more sack to be the leading defensive tackle sack leader in Commanders history, right? You sure as hell he's going to be playing snaps to get a sack. I'm not sure how many sports books offer that sack total, but that's just an example. We saw last year, I forgot who exactly it was, but one of the players needed 3 catches to get their $100,000 bonus. So I think it was Rodgers and someone on the Packers threw it to him 3 times to start the game, that he sat the hell out and didn't touch the ball another time. But that's a prop. If the prop was 2.5, like, you know, there's cash there. So we should have more actionable info on that directly right this second. But incentives in terms of contract and record breakings for teams are things to keep in mind when looking to bet in the final week of the season.
No, I think that's a really good point, because earlier this week I was actually sent something on 2 guys. Christian Kirk, who I believe needs a couple receptions and some yards. Like, I think it's more around the range of around 90 yards, so he needs a decent amount. But I mean, he's still a guy who can go off. You know, Trevor Lawrence has been playing very well, and you know, it's definitely a situation as well where when the quarterbacks know that it's proven that they target you more. And then I know someone who else has something going on in terms of contract incentives is Derrick Henry. You know, I believe Derrick Henry is around, again, lofty, around 200 yards to get to 2,000 yards, scrimmage yards on the season or something along those lines. So that's why I'm going to target him here with the over 89.5 rushing yards. And again, we spoke about this. This week is different. It's a weird week, you know, when some teams have things, you know, their playoff situation secured and other teams don't. It's tough to pinpoint on player props and things of that nature because, you know, it's all about time. It's all about timeshare, volume, opportunity. You know, every minute or every snap that a player is on the field, they have more of an opportunity at hitting a player prop. So that's what you're kind of looking for here. Mm-hmm. And with Derrick Henry, he's hit this number in 8 out of 15 matchups this season. He missed their last game due to an injury, but also when playing the Jaguars earlier this year, he had 17 carries for 121 yards, so rushed very well against Jacksonville. And, you know, I think this is a Tennessee team that right now a lot of people are sleeping on. I think they're very well head coached by Mike Vrabel, and he's also a head coach like Dan Campbell. Like, guys, this Tennessee Titans team is not good. Like, they are not very good. Like, and yeah, in terms of skill position players and, you know, quarterback position, things that actually matter, like, they struggle all over the place. They're just very well head coached. They have a solid defense that they can get behind, and they have a crazy good run game that can control the clock and eat up yards, you know? So, and I think that's what they're going to do again here with Derrick Henry. You know, Vrabel's going to get this team going. He's going to make sure they're rushing the football well. And, you know, as the game progresses, Derrick Henry tends to pick up 1 yard more, 2 yards more, and then he'll burst that big run. And Jacksonville is definitely susceptible to that. So for me, I'm going over 89.5 rushing yards with Derrick Henry. And this is definitely one, if you want it, you can shop it around. We found about a 3-yard discrepancy between most sports books as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's an amazing point. And like Jacksonville Titans, obviously one of the marquee games on the slate at the 8:15 game Saturday night because winning in, plain and simple.
Yep.
The way that the Jaguars kind of dismantled the Titans in Tennessee the last time they played, like, I don't know if I'm giving Vrabel too much credit because I don't think I am, because I do truly believe he's one of the top 5 head coaches in the National Football League. The Titans are so much less talented than the Jaguars. Their injuries are so much more depleted. Like Joshua Dobbs is playing quarterback in this game, and they're only 6.5-point dogs, dude. Like,
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, I could easily, if you would have told me that like week 4, like the Jaguars would be like -8.5. You know what I mean? You're telling me they're only on 6.5. So that's a game I'm personally staying away from. I'm gonna root the hell out. I'm gonna watch it. Of course, I think it's gonna be a great football game.
Yeah,
I would definitely lean Titans points there, though. I don't know if you have a lean in that game.
Titans points, 100%.
Yeah, it's just like I love Trevor Lawrence. I had a ticket this year. I took Trevor Lawrence to lead the league in passing yards. Obviously, not even close, but just to show I was bullish on him last year. I knew last year was a fluke. Like anyone who was trying to say, even the beginning of the season, like Trevor Lawrence sucks. I'm like, bro, this is his rookie year. Last year did not count. Like you could consider that anything else. Like, and while I love him, and I think again the Jaguars are talented as hell. The thing is, they're not like talented as hell. That's an overstatement. They're more talented than the Titans, because that doesn't take much for the quarterback. But I don't know, man. I'm not betting against Vrabel in a big game like this. We saw him go toe to toe with like some of the best teams in football all year long. Like, and the one factor that stays the same while the Titans have the injuries and these problems is that Vrabel's guys play hard for him. So obviously it's Doug Peterson's and whatnot, but this just kind of brings me up. Like, we obviously are going to the playoffs next weekend. Matt, I'm excited as hell to do like a playoff preview on the show next week. Like, just thinking about it.
Dude, that's going to be great. I mean, it's insane how fast every single year I say this, but it's insane how fast the NFL season goes by. Like literally all summer long, I like have like it's literally like that middle school feeling, like when you got a crush, like you got that feeling in your stomach. That's how I feel towards the NFL. Like I get so excited for the NFL to come back, and now that it's over, like it's just like, or not over, but we're getting to that point. You know what I mean? Yeah. But no better time to break down games than the playoffs. Everyone's going to bring it. That's when the player props are going to be at their best. The spreads, obviously, the lines are super sharp. And definitely tough, but I think we'll still be able to find some nice angles.
For sure. So next week on the Almanac, Matt and I will do a whole postseason primer. We're going to break down, obviously, our wild card bet weekends. We'll also talk some futures for NFC Championship, AFC Championship, and, of course, the Super Bowl. So all that will be next week on the show. And then again, of course, plays for wild card weekend. You can follow us on Twitter at Bettor's Almanac. You can find Matt on Twitter at MoneylineMatt8 and myself on Twitter at Slime Action. Matt, any closing thoughts for week 18?
No, let's close the season strong. You know what I mean? I'm this year I'm at a 53% during the NFL regular season. Definitely wish I was a little higher. Last year I finished at 63. But we got one more week, looking to finish it strong, hoping to get around 55, 56% still in the positive, and then move into the playoffs and see what we can do.
Yeah, totally feel that, dude. I've won in 10 straight weeks. I've been plus money. And I made 10 straight weeks, and that's 13 of 17 weeks this season have been plus money, and three of those weeks came weeks 2, 3, and 4, bro. So like, not out here trying to brag and all, but like, obviously putting the work in this shit, and just to show that, like, I mean, it's been a hell of a season. My volume in betting drops immensely in the postseason, right? Like, I'm not have wild card weekend. I literally might have one play, even though there's whatever 5 games, the most games. Like you said, they're sharp as hell, and there's no need to force at this point, right? Like, I could get creative and throw together some of those same game parlays that you kill, try to have like a little fun. But then it's like, why are you giving back? You did all this work all season to make this money. No point in giving it back like that.
For sure, I feel you.
But we appreciate everybody. Best of luck on your bets this weekend. Tap in for these free bets we're giving out, and we'll see you guys next week.